Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and these are the current offerings from Apple for iPads minus the iPad mini. Now I didn't include the iPad mini because I personally wouldn't get that unless you need it for something specific, because it hasn't been updated in a very long time and it doesn't have any of the modern hardware that these devices do. So what we have here is the 2018 iPad, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro from last year, and the 2018 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Now know that the 11-inch that's also available in iPad Pro is the exact same, just a different size screen. So let's start with the specs, and if you want to skip ahead, check in the description below for the time code so you can skip ahead to whichever part you're looking for. So we'll talk about the price, the specs, and then we'll do some comparisons of what's different between them, and then some actual speed comparisons and things like that. Now the 2018 iPad Pro is the least expensive here. This comes in at $329, and very often you can find deals to make it less expensive than that. So it's $329, it comes with 32 gigabytes of storage, or you can go to 128 gigabytes of storage for more. But if you'd like to get a cellular version, you can do that as well. So you can tell the cellular because it will have antennas here, it'll have a little plastic cutout, and it is $130 more for that cellular option, so you can go up to $559 with 128 gigabytes of storage. That storage is not expandable. Now the 2018 iPad has a 9.7-inch display. It comes in at 2048 by 1536 with 264 pixels per inch, and then this has the A10 Fusion processor with an M10 co-processor in it. It's about 2 times faster than the previous generation and 2.7 times faster graphics than the previous generation of this iPad. Now it does have cameras. It has a forward-facing 1.2 megapixel camera, and then on the back it has an 8 megapixel with an f2.4. This only records 1080p video. So overall, it's a great value. It's the standard iPad, but it does have an air gap here. So what that means is it's a non-laminated display. There is an air gap between the glass and the LCD underneath. Now this actually has a couple advantages. Some people say it can go a little bit brighter. However, the main advantage to this is that if you crack it, it's easier to repair at home if you want to do that, because the glass is not attached directly to the LCD display with glue. So while it's not easy to change, you can do that. It does have Touch ID as well, and all of these last about 10 hours. Now this only has 2 speakers on the bottom with your Lightning connector there. Again, it's the classic iPad that was introduced quite some time ago. You've got a microphone there, and it's a great value. It does work with the Apple Pencil, and it also works with the Logitech Crayon. We'll talk more about those in a moment. So if we move on to the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, this was my favorite until the new device came out. And this one is significantly more expensive. It comes in at $649 and goes all the way up to $1129. So again, $130 more if you want cellular, up to $1129. 64 gigabytes of storage is the minimum, 512 is the maximum. We have a 10.5-inch display on the diagonal. It's 2224 by 1668 with 264 pixels per inch. Now this one has a ProMotion display, True Tone, and a P3 wide color gamut. And it's also laminated, so it means the display is attached right to the glass. It feels like when you're touching it, your finger's right on the icon. Now again, this one has Touch ID. You'll see the bezels are a little bit smaller. And then we also have an A10X processor in here with a CPU that's 2 times faster than the previous iPad Pro and 4.3 faster graphics-wise. This one has 4 stereo speakers, which are really good, along your Lightning port there, again at the top. And then we have a different camera on the back, which is 12 megapixels and can record in 4K. So it's a really nice package overall. And then you have some accessories because you have a little pogo pin adapter here. So if you want to get a keyboard, or that's pretty much it with this, but you get a keyboard that attaches. It doesn't use batteries. It just works, and you get those from Apple. So that part's really nice. And again, this is a significantly faster device than this one. We'll take a look at that in a moment, but this ProMotion display makes the display super smooth, and it's hard to see. I am recording this at 60 frames per second to try and show you the difference, and maybe you can see it there, but there is a difference when you're looking at it. When you use one, you definitely notice it. Now we also have a 7 megapixel camera here that can record in 1080p, and that's true of the newest iPad Pro as well. Now if we take a look at this one, you'll notice there is no fingerprint sensor. You use Face ID now, and you can hold it in any orientation to do that. Now if we're talking about price, this comes in at $799 if you have the 11-inch version, and can go all the way up to $1899 for the 1 terabyte version. So you can get 64 gigabytes to 1 terabyte, and then the 1 terabyte model also has 6 gigabytes of RAM, although tests show that that doesn't really make any difference, and it's believed to help out the storage controller, although we don't really know for sure what they're doing with that. Now this display is 2732 by 2048 on the 12.9 inch, 264 pixels per inch. Again, it has that P3 wide color gamut, so it displays more colors. It also has True Tone, and internally this has the new A12X CPU that's 3 times faster than this generation of CPU. It's also 8 times faster graphics than this CPU as well, so it's an impressive jump, and it's incredible that it has that. And then on top of that, it has a neural engine that has to do with AI, so it's really impressive what it's got. Now, if we take a look around this, again, this is that 7 megapixel camera. It's also got true depth sensors for Face ID. And then if we look at the bottom, they've replaced the Lightning connector with USB-C. We also have 4 speakers, but this time around they have woofer and tweeters. Then on this side, again, 2 more speakers, 2 microphones. And then on the back, we have a 12 megapixel camera with an f1.8, and this one also does 4K video. But this device does not have a headphone jack where these do. Now we also have the pogo pins on the back this time for our accessories, and then a little charging spot here for the Apple Pencil if you pick that up. Your volume buttons are here. Your power sleep wake button is up here. So that's it as far as what they look like. Now, if we put them side by side, there's an obvious difference. I definitely like the newer one better. It feels better in the hand to me as far as that comparison goes. The squared off corners make a big difference. If you look at it here, they do make a difference, and it's hard to appreciate unless you hold it. However, there have been some durability concerns lately about this design. I wouldn't put this in a backpack with a lot of heavy things on it. This one either. This one does flex quite a bit. If you just twist it a very little bit, I'm very careful with my devices. I'm applying very little pressure. You can see it twist on the older iPads. This one is even worse. So let me show you here. I'd never recommend doing this, but just push lightly and it can twist. It actually feels like this one twists more easily to me, but I'm not going to do any damage tests. And again, this one actually feels a little more solid. And that's probably why they kept this form factor instead of the iPad Air 2 when they went to this, because it's more rigid. Now let's talk about what they all can do, and then we'll move on to what they all cannot do between all 3 of them. So all of them run iOS 12, 12.1, and all the latest versions, and will probably be updated for quite some time. They all have about 10 hours of battery life. They all play the same games, the same apps, the same utilities. I haven't found anything that doesn't run on any of these. Now there may be some that don't run on the original iPad when Photoshop comes out later in 2019 or earlier in 2019. It's hard to say, but right now I haven't found anything that doesn't run okay on all of them. They all work with an Apple Pencil, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then they also all have Siri and also the keyword, so you can say, hey, and then that name, and it'll wake up any of these and you can ask the assistant questions. They all work with Apple Pay. They all have a 3-axis gyro, an accelerometer, ambient light sensors for the display, and a barometer. And I'm not exactly sure what they're using that for. Now, if you get the cellular model, they all have GPS as well. Now let's talk about what they don't have. The iPad does not have a laminated display like I mentioned before. It also doesn't have an anti-reflective coating on the display, so it is more reflective. It doesn't have that ProMotion for the speed of the display, which for some people they'll care or won't. It doesn't have True Tone. Artists generally don't care about that because True Tone makes whites look like paper and not necessarily what their color accuracy is or what white really is. Now what iPad does have though is that cheaper price. It plays all the same games like I said. It does have a headphone jack still, which the newest iPad Pro does not have. It also has the cheaper Apple Pencil support. So this Apple Pencil works with this iPad and the 10.5-inch iPad. Pro, but it does not work with the newest one. You have to have a new pencil for the 11 and 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So these are $99, and then you can also get that Logitech crayon, which is inexpensive, even more so, at about $70. Now, it also has Touch ID, which some people really like still. I still do. I think Touch ID and Face ID works well on both devices equally when it comes to iPads. More so, it's different on iPhones. And then that's it as far as what the iPad has or doesn't have over the others. Now, if we move on to what the iPad Pro has, the iPad Pro 10.5 is a little bit cheaper than the new one. It still has those 4 speakers. This one has a headphone jack, so you can get this in 12.9 inches as well. But we still have that headphone jack here. We also have that ProMotion display, Touch ID, and again, that cheaper Apple Pencil support. The 2018 iPad, however, has amazing speakers. These speakers are definitely better than any other iPad I've ever heard. You can see my iPad Pro review for that on the latest one, but the speakers sound incredible, and it's hard to convey through a microphone. You're just not going to hear it, but when you're listening to it, it's almost like it's coming directly at you somehow, and that makes a big difference, I think, at least for watching videos. So even if you don't have a headphone jack, if you don't need headphones all the time, this is an amazing device for that. Now, as far as what this one has, it has USB-C, which I think is going to be the port of the future, but you still have to use things like dongles with it. So it is nice, but it's also a pain at the same time. And it also has thinner bezels. So if you don't like the thicker bezels, you get thinner bezels on the new one. And again, Face ID. So now what we'll do is we're going to open a few apps and just see what they look like and how quickly they load. So let me close all the apps on all of these, and we'll check that out next. So I have all of the apps closed. You'll see here if I double tap or slide up, there's no apps that are currently open. So let's go into, we're going to go into Minecraft on all of these and just see what the comparison is, opening them up and loading something. So we'll go here, we'll open these up. And this is the first time they've been opened on this one. There we go. We'll skip this here. We'll continue. And what we'll do is we'll hit play. And then we're going to create new on all of them. Create new again. And let's see how fast it takes to get into the game, or how long it takes. And I hit this one a little bit longer later. We're already in on this iPad Pro. This one's still loading for some reason. We're in here, now we're in here. So there's definitely something different going on there, but you saw how fast this one is. So that was pretty impressive as far as that goes. And of course, we could run the test again, but they're so close, and this one's impressively fast as well, that I don't think many people are going to have an issue with that. There we go. Now the next thing, let's open up a different app. We'll open up the App Store just to see what it's like to scroll. We'll go here, App Store. I have a bunch to update apparently here, but if we go to the Today view, you'll see there's scrolling. They're all going to be super fast there. And then all of them have the multitasking. Go there. It's just a little bit different here. And maybe we want to go into here, go back. They'll resume nice and quick. And we're all back in at the same speed. So for most people, that's going to be super fast. Now, if we want to do something like open a web browser and then bring in another window, we can do that on all of these as well. We're at my website, and again, it scrolls nice and smooth. Now, if we want to bring in something else, we can do that. So if we go here, we swipe up a little bit. Maybe we want to bring in the App Store. You just bring it in over like this. And this is on the cheapest iPad. So you can do this on the cheapest iPad, the more expensive iPads. It doesn't matter. This processor can handle the exact same thing. And you can do that on all of them, like I said. So again, it's that swipe gesture up, drag this over here, and you've got the same thing. And they all respond about the same as far as the speed goes there. This one is a little bit harder to do that with its gestures, though. So if we swipe up a little bit, you really have to learn how to do it to get that to work well. But you get the idea. That works really well. Now, if we go into something else, maybe you just want to browse some music, same thing. Everything loads nice and fast, and it's again hard to convey. You saw it hiccup there a little bit. It's hard to convey that smoothness unless you can see it in the 60 frames per second of this video. It's just so smooth on these newer iPads. Now if we run Geekbench, let's close all of these just so you can get an actual numerical value. Now this isn't necessarily a pure representation of how much faster everything is, but let's go into Geekbench and see what we get. And here you can see all of the different processors represented. If we go to CPU on all of them, and we'll hit Run Benchmark. And I'll speed this up so you don't have to wait for it. So they all completed, and you'll see the scores are significantly different, especially on the newest iPad. So we have single core for the 2018 iPad at 3,521, where its multi-core is 6,020. On the 10.5-inch iPad, we have 3,976 for single core, 9,517 for multi-core. On the 2018 iPad, we have 5,022 for single core and 18,111 for multi-core. That's pretty crazy when you compare that to even a later MacBook Pro, a 2017. That's pretty close. So those are some pretty impressive numbers, especially from the newer iPad Pro. Whether or not they make a difference in something that's very intensive, though, is hard to say unless we try something like iMovie and exporting a 4K video. So let's check that out now. So here you can see we have the same exact movie that I recorded off a Panasonic GH5 that I'm using to record this. It's 7 minutes and 17 seconds long. It's the same exact movie on all of them. And all I did was drop in all the footage, and this is for an upcoming review, but I dropped in all the footage and I thought we'd try and export it. 7 minutes should be a long enough time to actually heat these up and see if they get warm and see how they perform over time. So let's get a stopwatch and see what this takes. Now I had to plug in the 2018 iPad as it was getting low on battery. It went to 19%, so in order to give it a fair chance, I thought I'd plug it in so that it has full power. So let me go ahead and share this. So they're all going to be shared in 4K. We'll export and see if we can hit these all at the same time. And there we go. They're all going to export. I'll speed this up so you don't have to wait. So let me unplug this. So that export time is actually pretty impressive given that it's 4K footage. Now let me check quickly to see if these are warm. And it's a little bit warm down here, just mildly warm though, which is pretty impressive for what it just did. If you just did that on an iMac or a MacBook, it would have spun up the fans most likely. It's not warm at all on the 10.5, and on this one, I don't feel a thing. There's not any difference in temperature. So the 2018 iPad got a little bit warm, but that's it. You'll see the spin or hear the fan spin up on any MacBook if you're doing 4K exporting. So that part is really impressive. We were about 9 minutes for the slowest one, which is really fast even for a MacBook. Now the last thing to compare between all of this are the pencils or styli or whatever you'd like to call them. So we have the Logitech Crayon here. This works with the 2018 and pretty much only the 2018. This is the first generation Apple Pencil and the second generation Apple Pencil. You can tell that basically because this one's shiny, this one's matte, and then has a flat side to it. This one also charges wirelessly on the side. This one charges through the bottom of the iPad, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's what they went with. So this one is paired here, this one is here. This does feel better in the hand for the newer generation, but this won't work with the previous ones and this won't work with the new ones. So you need to get the current one for the current iPad. So if you want to talk about accuracy, let's go into notes. Now, if we bring this up here, you'll see here's the Crayon, and the Crayon is lacking some of the sensitivity of the first generation Apple Pencil, but you can go right up to the edge here, and it's pretty fast. There isn't really a whole lot of lag. If I draw Zollotech, It's like an A, but Zollotech, you'll get the idea. It's pretty quick. There's not really any lag there. If I move over to the 10.5, and notice True Tone is not on this display, but the display definitely looks a little bit different. You'll see here, again. Now this one feels a little bit faster, and I think it's because of that ProMotion display. So again, it's quick. You can go right up to the edges here. It's pretty close to the edge detection. But I think the edge detection on the newer one is a little bit better. So let's try it on the new one. So if I set this down, we'll go over here. Again, well, let's change the pencil out so we're even here. You can go right up to the edge, even more so right up to the edge on this one. So I think you get the idea. It's nice and fast. This one feels a little bit better, less slippery in the hands, and seems to go up to the edge a little bit more. Right up to that edge. So that's the difference between these. Now this one charges on the side, just like that. You'll see it says Apple Pencil. Again, to charge this one, you've got to plug it into the bottom, which is kind of a goofy design. And then this one actually just charges via lightning cable. Again, all of these are extra accessories. So now that we've talked about all of the different things, what they can do, and the differences between them, the real question is, which one should you get? Now, it depends really what you're going to be doing with it. If you're actually going to edit video or music with it, get the Pros. You're going to enjoy the speakers, you're going to enjoy the display more. But if you're a casual user that just wants to read some books occasionally and use it more for maybe Netflix or something like that, YouTube, just keep in mind, you could buy 2 of these before you get one of these, and you could buy 4 or more of these before you can get one of these, depending on which one you want to choose. So it's really up to you which one you think is worth it, but the speakers definitely are better and the display is way better. If you're going to use the camera, these are better. But if you want something that you don't have to worry about, you can usually get deals on these. It's a little bit smaller, but at $329, when it's not on sale, it's a great buy. Now, I personally use this as my main computer when I'm not editing video, so I really value the higher end one. It's something I like to use a lot. I look forward to using it because of that ProMotion display, but this is not for everyone. You don't need an iPad Pro unless you want it for specific things. You want the better speakers or the better display. When you're reading a book, they pretty much look the same. So you're not really going to notice a difference unless you want True Tone. But I personally don't use True Tone a whole lot. That changes the look of the display. When you're in display, turn on True Tone. It makes it look more like paper on the whites. And some people like it, some don't. But it's not worth the double the price entry level just for an iPad Pro compared to an iPad. So I would say if you can get an iPad Pro for a big discount, I would get one. But if you've got one of these for a couple $100, it's worth picking up if you don't have a current iPad, because you can play everything. You can use all the augmented reality games. The camera is good on all of them. You can FaceTime with all of them. They all do the same thing currently. That may change next year, but currently they're pretty much the same as far as the user experience, because nothing's different across the actual platform other than the Face ID and the better cameras and specs. So you saw that export time with a 4K video. That's about as hard as you're going to push an iPad, and it exports very closely to what the newest one does. But hopefully that helps you decide a little bit better which one works best for you. Of course, with the new one, I forgot to mention, you've got Animoji and Memoji and all of those things with the Face ID camera. If you want to use true depth and portrait mode and all that, that's all here on the new one. But again, you'll have to determine whether or not it's for you. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Which one would you pick, or did you pick, and why? I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.